Hey guys, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. I lost my FOMO, but it is back. March 13th, 2020. The world turned upside down. The day before, I was pennyboarding with a friend, wondering why Battery Park was so empty, and 24 hours later, I was too scared to take the subway thanks to a certain airborne virus. I got dressed up as an e-girl and sat inside because that's what you do when you're newly addicted to TikTok and everything is closed. Then I was promptly evicted from my dorm room. I found myself in the place where I thought I'd never return, my childhood bedroom. In a wave of manic pandemic productivity, I transformed my room into a slightly more mature and minimalist space for content, and because I couldn't bear to live with a color palette my second grade self chose. At the time, everything was on Zoom or, like my internship that summer, canceled. In desperate need of money for online shopping, I got a part-time job as a cashier at a local grocery store. Here I encountered former classmates, Karens, and the realization that I didn't mind that the only places I went were work and home. In fact, I kind of loved it. There was quite literally nowhere else to go and nothing else to do, so for the first time in my life, my fear of missing out was nowhere to be found. By the time I returned to school in fall 2020, fraternizing still only occurred online, outside, and or 6 feet apart. And when winter rolled around, having a social life was still a certified public health hazard, which was perfectly fine with me. I laid in bed, consumed copious amounts of TikToks, and patted myself on the back for being so good at being alone. That is until I realized being physically by myself and the ability to be alone with my thoughts were two very different things, so I attempted the latter. I journaled more than ever, and per the recommendation of a therapist, even went on walks without my phone. I started to feel at peace with myself. I didn't need podcasts to pad the quiet moments between meetings, nor plans on a Friday night. I was content with perusing parks and propagating the message that being a loner was in fact cool. And then something peculiar happened. And by peculiar, I mean a life-saving scientific breakthrough: the vaccine. Don't get me wrong, despite my affinity for hermithood, I would be lying if I didn't admit that the prospect of brushing elbows with my friends without fear of a 10-day quarantine excited me. I refreshed the New York State vaccine website like it was 2015, and I was scavenging for One Direction tickets. I nearly cried tears of joy when I got my first jab. The city started slowly awakening from its slumber. Bottomless brunch, Washington Square Park, Pizza Rat, and the guy with the free hug sign were all back in business. Nature, at least New York's version of it, was healing. And then it hit me. We were back to the days of scrolling through Instagram and jumping to the conclusion that I was in fact a friendless loser because I didn't have happy hour plans on Friday, a party to attend on Saturday, or a perfectly aesthetic Central Park picnic to be a part of on Sunday. The world was back that summer, and like a moth to a flame, so was my FOMO. But by the time the leaves started falling, cases started rising. In-person events were canceled, and by winter we were kind of back to hibernation. In fact, I spent Christmas and my birthday in quarantine. Spending 2 major holidays sick in a dorm room may sound like nightmare fuel for many, but to me it was a dream, albeit a slightly sadistic one, come true. By the time I figured out Santa wasn't real, Christmas lost its charm, and despite my penchant for internet fame, I don't like being the center of attention. But my birthday is December 27th, 1999, in case you or famousbirthdays.com was wondering. When it comes to birthdays and holidays, I found that expectations are a recipe for disappointment. In quarantine, I couldn't expect anything exciting, and my only option was to sit in my room and order ramen. But most importantly, I didn't mind because while I was physically alone, I was aware that 22,000 other New Yorkers were probably doing the same exact thing. After the peak, things slowly started to pick up until my life turned into a full-on game of whack-a-mole. Stuff just kept popping up. A trip to San Francisco, the obstacle course that was making my thesis film, randomly getting invited to Coachella, senior year festivities, and before I knew it, graduation. My busyness saved me from FOMO for a while, but on days where my GCal is empty, I find myself with a funny itch that I can't seem to scratch. The feeling that I should be doing something or be somewhere or be with someone that just isn't myself. As much as I am an introvert, I kind of need to socialize for that part of me to exist, to thrive even. There's no yin without yang, there's no dark without light, there's no introvert without people to be around. If my whopping 1 month of post-grad life has taught me anything, it's that socializing tends to be more difficult when you aren't in college. People get full-time jobs, move to different cities, or both. You can't just meet up for boba at the drop of a hat because not everyone lives within the same 1 mile radius or is free at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. As graduation neared and my awareness of how much social friction is built into adult life increased, I realized that that's the beauty of college, the fact that most of your friends are within walking distance and almost always free to hang out. It's basically 4 years of government-sponsored playtime. Yes, you go to learn, but the essence of college, the experience, if you will, is simply socializing. Now, I've talked about this notion before, the idea that college, at least in the US, went from a place to strictly learn to a destination for the ever-elusive experience. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it definitely shouldn't cost tens of thousands of dollars per year. Thanks to the copious amount of college advice videos I consumed as a freshman, I was pretty aware that if I didn't have friends, college would kind of suck. My lackluster social life in high school didn't bother me because I was so focused on trying to get good grades and get into college. But I quickly realized that as a film major, no one really cared about my GPA, and most employers didn't even care what I studied as long as I could get the job done. So I put most of my time into making YouTube videos and short films, applying to scholarships and internships, and most importantly, meeting people and convincing them that they liked me enough to be my friend. College is a luxury for so many reasons, but one of the biggest ones is community. For many, it's one of the only times in life where you live in such close proximity to great friends and people who have the potential to be them. For me though, at least in the beginning of college, it was sort of a catch-22. The opportunities to socialize were endless and omnipresent with the ubiquity of social media. At any given moment, Instagram reminded me that there were people who were cool and doing things, and that I was not one of them. After graduating, I haven't felt this exact strain of FOMO, mostly because now hanging out with friends at any given moment isn't possible, but that doesn't make sitting alone, scrolling on a planless Saturday night any easier, especially when the sounds of the city are right outside your window. So what's the solution? Delete Instagram, make plans, get sucked into a Netflix docusoap with multiple seasons to numb the pain, dump your thoughts on FOMO into a YouTube video to see if anyone else can relate. I wouldn't say I'm lonely. I have a lot of great people in my life who I can talk to and hang out with, but I'm not as good as being alone as I thought I was, which is ironic considering one of my most viewed videos is titled The Art of Being Alone. Clickbait, maybe, but mostly I think it's growth. At that point in life, I thought I'd reached the pinnacle of self-awareness, and now I've realized I wasn't even close, and in a year, I'll probably look back and think, you didn't even scratch the surface. If life is a book, I'm starting a new chapter. My 20s, the post-grad years, what some might call the defining decade. More than anything though, I'm in the work in progress stage of life. And I feel like this section is often overlooked in favor of prodigious success stories or perfected memoirs. Clearly, my life is neither, But as I am trying to remind myself, that doesn't make it any less interesting or valuable. I used to blog a lot more, but I started making commentary and video essays, which I will continue to create, but I kind of miss having a public archive of my life to look back on. Also, it can be tiring to be a professional opinion haver. So I'm excited to start this new series on my channel and pontificate on life with no particular thesis or destination, but I hope you guys will join me on this journey.